Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan from Fireside Yankees. I'm joined with my co-host Aiden, and we have a very special guest from Pitcher List at Pitcher List on Twitter, Nick Pollock. Nick, we are so excited to have you on. You are one of the brightest minds when it comes to pitching that I've ever seen on social media. You've done some groundbreaking work with Pitcher List, with various, whether it's video content, whether it's fantasy content, or just breaking down pitch data in general. You are pitching savant, I think is the right way to put it. Nick, how you doing today, my friend? Where can we find you? Give us a little bit of an introduction.
Oh man. Well, don't call me those things again. But no, I mean I've been doing this for 10 years with Pitcher List, and society started a while ago because I pitched in college and coached afterwards. And I love pitching, and I don't care about hitters, don't even care about relievers. They're there just to mop things up to make sure everything's fine. So starting pitching is just such a joy, and I'm fortunate that I get to talk about this thing and understand that every single pitcher in the majors has a different way of throwing, and figuring out how they get their outs is such a fun process, and I love talking about it and teaching it to others.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when it comes to pitching and kind of the nuances of all that, there are obviously, a lot of different things that go into that. And, obviously your work there has been great. But, the Yankees are obviously, this is Fireside Yankees. This is a Yankees kind of podcast, whatever it may be. And, there's a lot of interesting questions we have. So we're really excited to get into it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, guys. And everyone listening right now, these guys put in so much work with this stuff. They already sent me a show sheet. So if you haven't yet, go rate and review them on iTunes. It goes a long way for them. It takes a moment for you guys, but it really means a lot to them. So make sure you do that. They put in so much work.
Okay, so Nick, so far the Yankees rotation has been phenomenal, for lack of a better word. They've been pitching their ass off, and the reason they're so surprising so far is because they're without the AL Cy Young winner, Garrett Cole. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's one of the best pitchers of our generation. So of the Yankees' 5 starting pitchers that have been great so far, who has impressed you the most?
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. I mean, I think it's that's really tough because Carlos Rodon and Nestor Cortez were both massive question marks entering this year. I didn't have a ton of faith in either one, to be honest. I mean, when it comes to Carlos Rodon, we saw him go 96 miles per hour for 2 games at the end of the year, and then all of a sudden drop down to 94, 93, and that was it. And I didn't really expect, considering the spring that he had of a lot of 93, 94, that we would be able to see any sort of production from him this year. But I was actually at the game last night, and save for that 93 mile per hour fastball to Kyle Tucker, he did a really good job of locating that slider down and getting whiffs again with it, looking upstairs with fastballs, getting up to 96. He averaged about 95 and change for the evening. And yeah, maybe he should have been pulled slightly earlier, which is not the old school Rodon who would go 110 and get higher velocity as the game would go on. He has certainly been productive. And honestly, as Yankee fans, I feel we should just be happy that we have a productive starter. After last year of just like, what is this? This is nothing and detrimental to us. So that certainly has been a surprise. Nestor Cortez is getting a bit better as the season has gone on, with cutters actually being located effectively. The four-seamer establishing himself in the zone is great. And I'm not really surprised, honestly, by Clark Schmidt. I don't know if you guys are, but we're seeing development from him too. And across the board, I mean, Stroman. Luis Teal is going through the volatility that we expected. So, yeah, I'd probably say Carlos Rodon is the one that has surprised me the most so far.
Yeah, and I fully agree with the notion that, like, hey, everything's kind of relative to what we saw last year. Last year, he wasn't just disappointing. I mean, he was actively costing the Yankees games. And you look at the pressure placed on the entire rotation without Garrett Cole, getting any sort of production from Rodon, it feels like a massive win. Even if, of course, maybe you don't think, maybe the contract isn't where it maybe the contract value isn't great, but you're the Yankees. You have a lot of money. You should be able to spend kind of over some of those mistakes or whatever it may be. And, the Yankees have done a really good job, I think, at least, especially with the bullpen. I know relievers are, it's different. They're more volatile. It's kind of easier to acquire relievers at a lower cost because the market as a whole kind of is lower on them. But a consistent team with the Yankees, I mean, whether it's the bullpen or rotation, as a team, I mean, they're tied for the lead in stuff plus at 107. Can you kind of take us through, for the casual viewer, like, what is the importance of having really good stuff, throwing nasty pitches? How is that, like, kind of that simple concept that's become a lot more kind of complex? How is that so important?
Yeah, I mean, Stuff Plus sounds like this ridiculous math term, but everybody watching baseball knows about Stuff Plus. It's just like, oh man, that looked so good. And instead of us just having that anecdote, we said, okay, let's actually quantify it. Like, we can see how much this thing moves. We can see how fast it is. Like, this stuff is easily attained, so let's figure out what is consistently good, what isn't, right? So if it moves more, generally that's higher stuff plus. If it's, if it's coming in harder, generally higher stuff plus, right? The Yankees, I'm actually not surprised that they have a higher stuff plus, just because I don't really think there is a massive hole in that rotation. You generally do have a number 4, number 5, and a lot of other teams that aren't the Yankees that expect greatness every year, who are not up to snuff, and they're constantly going through a revolving door. And right now, the Yankees actually might have a depth problem. If everybody's healthy for another month or so, Garrett Cole might be coming back in June, and where does he go? How do we fit that in there, right? So crossing our fingers there that we have a good problem to solve there. There's also a thing about sweepers. Sweepers are generally a high stuff plus pitch. Sliders in general too, but sweepers for the most part are I don't know if I agree with it, because they're thrown against right-handers, same-handed batters. They're really effective. They go away laterally, right? And they don't perform well coming in to the opposite-handed batter. It's just a much easier pitch to hit when the ball is coming towards you than at a slower pace than it is going down. So Stuff Plus, though, generally loves sweepers. I have PLV at Pitcher List, which is our pitch quantifier. That also takes into account locations, but it also has the same thing of, yep, we like sweepers, and the Yankees love them. We see Clark Schmidt really leaning into it. We have Marcus Stroman even throwing some in there. You have Nestor Cortez doing that. So it doesn't surprise me a ton that the Yankees are high in Stuff Plus. And also, as you mentioned with the relievers, like, yeah, the Yankees aren't okay with just a pedestrian 92. You'd be surprised if you're a Yankee fan. Watch other random teams, and you'll see this guy, like, who is this? And he throws 92, and it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. The Yankees don't do that. They actually always focus on their bullpen and find some guys and focus on stuff overwhelming electricity. And the other side of it is location, right? And there's a long debate about what is more important ultimately, stuff or location. Are you spotting these pitches well, or are you Joe Boyle, who has over-the-top velocity and a huge breaking ball, but can't put it anywhere, right? Well, that's a little bit of Luis Heel, who I'm sure we'll get to as well. The Yankees realized, well, as a reliever, like, you just want stuff, really, and they've certainly focused on that. So it's great to see that the entire team is working well. It doesn't surprise me that they focus on just, hey, throw the ball hard and make it move. I mean, that's Stuff Plus for you, so it's going well so far.
So obviously you just touched on him a little bit. Luis Heel has been one of the kings of Stuff Plus so far. He has that electric fastball, and his breaking stuff is really starting to come into form. And, it's really about, what do we value more in a pitcher? Do we value his stuff, or do we value his location? And Luis Heel, he's not the best locator. His command's really not great. So with electric stuff and poor command, do you think his profile is sustainable, or do you think, when Garrett Cole comes back, his role will be in the bullpen as, a late inning reliever maybe?
Oh, man, I hope not. Luis Heel is a 3-pitch guy, right? Saris and I have a podcast called The Craft. It's one of my favorite things that I get to do. And as we've been talking about the Yankee pitchers for a bit, we kind of put them in 2 molds, right? You have like the Clark Schmidt, Michael King, Will Warren types, who are sinker sweeper, really, with changeup in there, right? Not really good 4-seamers at all. Then you have the Clayton Beater and Luis Heel, and as we call it, Luis Severino type, who are overpowering 4-seamers with a big gyro slider and hopefully a changeup as well. And Luis Heel's on the latter side, and when it comes to the spectrum of stuff versus command, you see the sweeper sinker guys more as a command, then you see the 4-seamer slider as more of the stuff. And Luis Heel is certainly that. Coming back from Tommy John surgery, we were really excited to see, can he have the same 4-seamer slider combination? It's a very flat attack angle on his 4-seamer. And just a quick clarification on what that means. You may have heard of VAA. It's vertical approach angle. It's something that I really started to learn just this past offseason. And it's so important when it comes to the ability to hit a baseball. And think of it this way. Bats are not flat when they go through the top of the zone. They are swinging at an upward, almost golfing at the top. That means the bat is going to go up in an angle. If the ball comes in at the same angle of the bat, that means it's going to intersect multiple times, right? So if you have a very steep at the top of the zone angle, that means the bat is going to have more opportunities to make contact with the ball. However, if you're very flat and the bat is going at an angle, and instead you have it flat on a table, that means the ball intersects the bat like once during the entire bat path, which means you have a much lower chance of making contact, right, as a hitter. So when you're throwing four-seamers, which are pitches that generally you want to throw upstairs, you want a very flat delivery. That means you're releasing the ball as low as possible, because think of it like you're on the ground throwing to the top of the zone, you're going to be throwing at one angle. If you throw from a skyscraper going down, you're going to be throwing at another. Those are the extremes of it. So Luis Gil has a very flat one. And Garrett Cole used to, by the way, then he didn't in 2023, and that might be the reason why his four-seamer didn't perform as well, and that's a conversation to have another time. I wonder what he looks like in June when he returns. But yeah, Luis Gil's four-seamer should miss a ton of bats. He just needs to throw enough strikes with it. We've even seen it middle of the zone, not even up, miss bats. The other question, of course, is the secondaries for Gil. So we only thought it was going to be fastball slider coming into this season, and that was really what we saw before in pre-Tommy John. The slider wasn't that consistent, and really we thought, this looks like a reliever just because we don't really think you're going to be able to locate well, and that's that. But then he showed up in spring with a changeup that got strikes. And we have a stat on our site called strike rate. Very simple. How often does this pitch earn strikes? What the goals are for pitchers is that you want your primary pitch, whatever it is, to be at least a 65%, and then your secondaries each to be reliable, over 60%. That's kind of the goal for Luis Gil. The good starts he's had this year, he's had his fastball around 70+%, and one of those two secondaries also above 60%, sometimes even above 70%. We don't always see it. The game against the Astros the other day for Luis Gil was a changeup and slider underneath 60. However, the general precision of his changeup was great. It was all low and underneath it. And yes, the Astros didn't necessarily swing at some of those underneath, but that set up his fastball better. Instead of being the chaotic shotgun spray in and out and up and whatever, I don't know where this changeup is going to go, at least Luis Gil was down a ton with it. And that meant those lower fastballs, they got that extra bit of hesitation. Is this going to be that changeup that goes out of the zone or not? And that's why Luis Gil was as effective as he is. So seeing him as a 3-pitch pitcher now instead of a 2 does raise the expectations a bit for Luis Gil. I think he's actually pitched better the past 3-4 starts than we saw in the first 3 that he had. A lot more strikes, more confidence with the changeup and the slider, and better strikes in the zone with the four-seamer. So I'm optimistic about Gil moving forward with more time. And I'll be completely honest with you. If I were a betting man, this situation will sort itself out. When it comes to something in the rotation is just going to go. It is so rare to go half of a season without changing your rotation, let alone a month that the Yankees already have. So I think if Luis Gil is still in that rotation and worthy of it, the Yankees certainly will not displace him. I'm excited for what's ahead. And Luis Gil's dope. It makes us feel dope. And he's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know that this wasn't a question on the doc, but because you were talking about Gil, I guess we did talk a little bit about Severino. And the concept of stuff plus and getting guys who can overpower, hitters. Do you think, how much do you believe there's a component of high stuff plus guys can just kind of limit damage contact by just having nasty stuff? I think a guy like that would be a good example, like a Jose Alvarado with the Phillies, where it's he doesn't know where the ball's going, but, you just can't hit home runs off of this guy, or like a Gregory Soto in some capacity, How much do you think that relationship exists between stuff plus and damage prevention?
Yeah, that's why a lot of stuff plus guys are relievers, because you can't do that over a full game. You're just not going to be efficient enough. And there's something that I came up with a stat called CSW back in 2017, which I still can't believe that no one else uncovered. And the whole idea of that is just, hey, it's a good thing to get strikes that are not in play. So it's called strikes plus whiffs, right? Thing is, on those guys that go 7-8 innings, they have low CSWs, and you go, wait, why is that? Shouldn't they be throwing these strikes? Well, it's because they're getting outs on those pitches. So you see, Jose Alvarado, when you're throwing a ball, you're not getting an out. And if you have Matt Brash, who has absurd, one of the highest breaking ball stuff pluses you'll ever see, he's a reliever because he doesn't know where this thing is going. He literally says, I'm just throwing it down the middle and hoping for the best. Dylan Cease, we've seen at times just completely fall apart, because his stuff plus is great. He has a lot of vertical break on his four-seamer, and he throws it hard, and he has this ridiculous, I think it's the number 1 slider stuff plus in baseball. He still is very inefficient. So between the two, there's also a really fun study that was done saying that if you have a high stuff plus, it actually doesn't speak to whiffs. It does speak to what you're saying of quality of contact going down for batters. However, location is more correlated to whiffs because where it's being located is a bigger difference for the batter to adjust than it is necessarily the movement of it, which I found fascinating. And it's why you have guys that have these strikeout rates that aren't necessarily overpowering, you feel, but they get those strikeouts. Like Garrett Cole at times last year was not really the most, oh my gosh, wow, incredible. It's just that's a whiff right there because he locates it right where he's supposed to, right? So there's a nice balance between the two. You have to have a certain threshold of command, so location plus, to be able to be effective. If you don't throw any strikes, they're just not going to swing at anything. You have to have enough of that, and then it takes over for stuff plus. So it's a fun conversation. There are a lot of elements that go into it. I'm personally someone that says, look, just understand the arsenal more than the actual pitch quantifying grades. Pitch quantifying grades overall, that's just a broad label. That's just one stroke of the brush saying every single pitch is like that. And we all know this. That is not the case. Game by game, it changes. Inning by inning at times. So watch a guy, understand how he gets his outs. How does he get his strikes? Does he have a fastball that he throws for strikes? Does he have a secondary pitch that he throws for strikes? Does he have a whiff pitch that he throws for strikes? And the best pitchers in baseball are the ones that have all three of those. Sometimes they're just two, and they can throw one of them both for strikes and for whiffs. But understanding the actual qualities of these, how they play off of each other, I think is it's a better way to grasp an understanding. Because, man, Graham Ashcraft has like one of the most ridiculous stuff plus things, but gosh, does that guy just do the most pedestrian stuff every single night. So it's a fun way of looking at the game. It's a great way to get amped about it. And I also implore you guys to look at the individual pitches themselves to really get a good grasp of these guys.
Yeah, and then kind of like the downside. Some people label it as the downside, but like I feel like it's such a buzzy topic and such a buzzy, kind of like it's a weird thing where I think a lot of people who don't necessarily know everything, the intricacies when it comes to pitching and injuries and stuff like that, try to get their opinion out, and it's hard. There's just so many opinions on this one topic. Yeah, there's a rise in pitching injuries. There just is, right? And stuff plus is going up, velo's going up, movement's going up. So, there is a natural tie that people are going to make for the two. What do you think is the driving force behind pitching injuries? And do you think there is a realistic solution that there is to remedy this issue? Not entirely fix it, but just somewhat remedy it.
Yeah, so I feel like there is. There's multiple problems here. So first and foremost, no, it is not the pitch clock. I know I've seen that one before. No. We were having this massive meteoric rise of injuries for other reasons that I'll get into, but it's not because of the pitch clock. If you actually remember, guys, the ones who took longest are the ones who get hurt. The ones who actually sped through games, like your Mark Burley and everything. Those guys were amazing. They would go 15 seconds, give me the ball, throw it back, give me the ball, go throw it back, right? These guys would be able to do it. Sure, that's not your 98-mile-per-hour flamethrower, but so many of these elite pitchers are just give me the ball, let's go, and it's not about the pitch clock. They didn't change anything with them. It's a pretty simple reason, and yes, throwing harder makes your arm hurt more. You have more force to deal with your elbow. There is also the impact of throwing incorrectly, but I think that fewer pitchers are throwing incorrectly these days. We just have so many advancements in understanding mechanics that is just not something that is as prominent as it used to be. The main issue is who gets paid, who makes it, who gets the opportunities. It's the guys who are throwing max effort most. You're not going to get attention. I remember when I was pitching in high school, they said if you don't throw 80, you're not going to go to college, or you're not going to pitch in the high school team, or you don't throw 85. Now it's like 90, 95. That's insane. That was 10, 15 years ago. And all expectations of what developing players are supposed to do is higher. You just won't go to the good enough school. Oh, wait, no, you're saying, Nick, that command matters. That's true, but the ceiling is capped initially, and they don't know. So everybody is incentivized to throw harder. And then you also have big league clubs. Yeah, there are so many people who throw hard. So why not go through them? The incentivization of a team to say, let's get better results, or worse results from you to get more durability, so few and far in between, right? It's just worth it to them. I mean, I remember the Kevin Cash quote. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We've got a stable full of guys throwing 95, right? Like, we know this. So how do you solve that? I think it's something that changes over time. And first and foremost, I'm going to try and keep this a little shorter than the full rant, but the in the end, you're going to have such a massive pool of players who can all now go 95 plus. So what do? You then start shifting away from finding someone who's 95, because everyone does that. You shift the focus to who are the ones who can do this over a period of time. Who are the ones that actually have the durability? I'm very much a believer that we have babied players far too much. We don't give players the opportunity to actually develop the strength to maintain a lot of things. I'm not saying that it's healthy to throw 99, but a lot of guys at 94, lower velocities, are getting hurt more often. We're seeing also from Japan, a lot of pitchers who get thrown out there for so many pitches and go constantly, don't have Tommy John, then the second that they're here, all of a sudden they get Tommy John. And there's something to that. So what I would say is that there should be a requirement for every team to have, if you are a starting pitcher, you cannot throw again until 6 games. Institute a 6-man rotation everywhere. I believe that that's the way to go. It is good for the players because they are now getting more rest and they're less hurt. You get one more player on the roster who's designated as a starter. What I would even say is that every day you have a team say, these guys are not able to pitch, and you take them off. So you can't do more shenanigans with, oh, you add another player to the roster, so then, oh, no, maybe I have one extra reliever some days and not. No, you do it like that. And you institute extra rest. I mean, that's really the problem in my view, is you can push yourself. You can't get better if you are still going 4 days rest. If you're going 5 days rest. If you're not actually instituting a plan that allows players to recover better. So that is my simple solution. At the end of the day, this is still going to be a problem, and it will always be a problem because we're going to push ourselves as far as we can, and we get paid if we make it to the majors. If a prospect gets called up and gets Tommy John, they get paid as a major leaguer as they rehab, right? They don't want to be rehabbing in the minors. They want to do everything they can to throw as hard as they can, max effort, all that stuff. And by the way, I didn't even mention the whole max effort thing is getting smaller and smaller. You got to be able to space it out, but that's another conversation. But yeah, you're going to see you got to create that better incentive for teams and force them to follow the rules, because if you don't have this rule, they're just going to maximize it in any way possible.
Yeah, absolutely, and apologize for the lawnmowers. I live in Long Island, so I mean, unfortunately.
You're good.
Oh, okay, great. No, I can, and it's just they're so loud. But no, I think it's a really, interesting and important conversation too, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of opinions and takes. And look, I'm not saying that there's one right or wrong answer, but I think it does lead to a lot of like finger pointing in the wrong direction. And it's like if the answer is to just not throw hard, then like you're just gonna have an offensive environment that batters not hit 100.
How do you limit that? How do you say that? Everyone's just gonna do it anyway because they want to be better.
And I mean, also you're talking about changing like intent and like how do you mechanically get yourself to throw less hard? Or, like I feel like that could also open do you think that could maybe open yourself up to more injuries if you're changing kind of the intent in how you throw and arm speed?
I mean, growing up, I was a starter, and I knew how to throw 95% versus 100%. Right? I knew how to save it in the tank, how to utilize it when I needed it, and not to dip into that often. Right? The whole understanding of preservation, all that kind of stuff. And these days it's just incentivized not to do that. So yeah, it's possible. It certainly is. And every pitcher should be able to do that, but no, they're not going to go out there and just throw softer. Like that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think also another aspect of this too is just kind of like looking at where the smart teams are, like the smartest teams, the Dodgers, the Rays, the thing like they understand the risk, and as you mentioned, it's a financial game too, right? Like, would you rather, that a guy like kind of using a Carlos Rodon here, it's like his injury track record was great before the signing. Like we all knew the risks, but he throws hard, he has a really good slider, and that's how you make $162 million. And let's be real here, $160 million is you just won life, life you just won. So
right. I mean, look at the Rays even actually. The Rays, we look at them all the time, like, oh no, look at them all the Tommy Johns and stuff. Well, everyone has them, and they also went after injured guys. They purposely saw that as a market inefficiency, realizing that everyone's going to get hurt anyway, so we're just going to do this. And yeah, they certainly benefited from that, right? There's much more of a understanding that pitchers get hurt more than ever, and they will continue to. So what the heck? Let's just utilize it while we can and not really be afraid of it. Lean into it instead. That's what the Rays did. I don't know if how smart the Dodgers are, by the way. I have a whole conversation. You can check it out on what me and Eno, but on the craft. But I think the Dodgers don't do the right things when it comes to their pitching approach, and it drives me up the wall. And it drives me nuts. So we'll see how it's funny. I don't know who are the smart organizations anymore. Just the Rays, I guess. Only one. Yankees maybe sometimes.
Yeah, the Rays, of course, in our division. So I mean,
we're fine. We're good.
Yeah, it's just an eternal pest that like it doesn't matter what their roster is. It doesn't matter who's there. They're always gonna find a way.
No,
and
not
even
this
now,
year.
like, look, they're 19-19. We're gonna go face them in the Trop, and I'm still dreading it. I'm dreading every second of that road trip. There is not a single part of me that wants like.
Oh my gosh.
I would rather there are a few opponents I'd rather face. I'm more scared of. I don't know how to put it.
Sweep
It's just
the Astros again, by the way.
yes. Today we play again at 5.
that's
Weird start time. Very weird
I
start time.
don't know if you know this, by the way. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I want to be happy in life. I am a Yankee fan.
Yeah, I figured by the way you're saying we, I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I
know.
assume you're a Yankee fan.
I don't say it much because I root for the other pitcher too. I was rooting for Argetti. I was like, come on, man, you got this, and then no, you don't. Okay, Yankees win. That's great, but it's something I don't. I'm loyal to the Yankees in the sense that I ultimately want them to win and be successful. At the same time, I don't know. I recognize the sport I love, and I'm going to root for everybody equally, essentially. But yeah, the Yankees will be in the playoffs. That'll be great. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, I thought Argetti. I was like the entire time. Like, I even tweeted out like, he's gonna have a really good start today. I think this is gonna be his best start.
Yeah,
And then Volpe got a single.
Pessimism, Ryan. You're good.
Yeah, no, literally like right after one pitch, Volpe single, and then the very next pitch, Soto. I mean, I was like, oh, okay, just sure, like just sure, yeah. I don't know if Aiden, if you have any final questions you want to ask. I'm tapped out on questions.
I'm all good. I think we covered a lot here. This was awesome.
And so for you guys, what player are you looking forward to the most? I mean, I'd say the pitchers really. Is it Will Warren? Is it Clayton Beeter? Is it I always forget the other one. Is it Chase Hampton? Is that his name? Or is that no?
Yeah, Chase Hampton's.
It is
yeah.
Chase Hampton. Okay, who's the guy on the Orioles? Is the other? I always Cade Povich, and the other one is I don't know. I just get them flipped all the time. But yeah, which of those guys are you most excited about?
I mean, my answer is Will Warren. I mean, Chase Hampton, I think, is the better prospect, but he's currently hurt and he's like rehabbing back. So like and also like Yankee fan brain here. I'm looking near picture. Will Warren is the closest guy to the major leagues. Sure. I love his pitch mix. Like I think there's just diversity in arsenal, command. And those are kind of things I'm looking for a starter. I don't know if Beater's necessarily going to be a starter in this league because he doesn't have a reliable third pitch, and that not that I'm not excited about him, just that starter outlook not necessarily the same for me.
Ben Brown.
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of like how my brain's kind of rationalized. It's like, okay, it's like Ben Brown, but like the stuff isn't as good.
Yeah, the slider's better than his curve, but then the four seam is better, I think, with Ben Brown. But yeah,
yeah, and it's pretty important too because like and the command is not good for Beater. I know the command isn't great for Brown, but it's just Warren is the guy. Like I'm Will Warren's biggest soul. Well, I can't even say it. I'm Will Warren's biggest supporter. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, what about you, Aiden?
Yeah, well, I mean, Will Warren's is a fan of the podcast, friend of the podcast. He's been on, so we're obviously big fans of him. But I guess I would have to say, I mean, last year I was most excited about Drew Thorpe, and obviously don't really have reason to be too excited about him anymore. But as much as I'm concerned about him with all of the injury stuff so far this year, I think I'm most excited about Chase Hampton just because his stuff is absolutely crazy. But I mean, I'm still like, to me, Luis Hill is still like a prospect to me, and that's like my guy. I'm one of his biggest truthers on Twitter. But if I had to pick any of the prospects, I would say Chase Hampton is my favorite just because of the stuff alone.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, Will Warren to me is too pedestrian. Like, he's a stopgap pitcher to me. He's not, he's at best like a Jordan Montgomery, who I call the Bear. I don't know about you guys, but Jormont from Game of Thrones was on Bear Island, so I just call him the Bear. That's I know he's Gumby. And someone got upset at me for calling him a different nickname. He has a nickname. Like, I don't care. I'm calling him the Bear. I'm just gonna do that. But yeah, Chase Hampton is the guy that kind of popped off for me in the offseason when I was looking at the Yankees. I was like, oh no, he's the one that has the interesting stuff here. And I think, yeah, Clayton Beater doesn't really seem like that. The thing is, he's on the 40-man. Will Warren isn't. So we might see Clayton Beater somewhat. If there's some stopgap somewhere, it may be him instead of Will Warren. Yeah, I'm not too enthused by Will Warren. It's interesting you mentioned Drew Thorpe. I really don't like change-up first pitchers. You look at like kind of like Gavin Stone, that kind of idea. You look at there was another guy that I'm completely blanking on right now, but generally when they come up, change-ups are not the pitch that dominates. It dominates the minors because the guys are just trying to hit heaters, but in the majors you can't do that. You need to have a legitimate slider. And pretty much like everyone, you got to have a legitimate slider. Or you got to have an overwhelming four-seamer, one of the two. And change-up focus guys just don't really cut it, especially as prospects. Maybe over time it gets there. So I was never really too in on Thorpe. He also threw like pretty soft and everything. And they traded him as the main piece in the Soto deal. I'm like, yes. Oh, and then of course Michael King. King is interesting because he has an amazing breaking ball, and he has actually like super legit command. And everyone's like, yes, you give it Michael King for what you want. So I'm like, I know, but I really like Michael King too. And it's 1 year of Soto. I'm like, fine. And now we got to pay the man. How much are you going to pay Juan Soto? What is it, 500?
I'd give him every GM brain off for a second here, like ignoring market value, whatever the man wants. Like I'm so my parents are both Dominican, so like for Juan Soto, this is like a dream come true. This is like this is everything I ever wanted. It's like when Gary first came up, I was like yes, and then it didn't work out the way I wanted to.
Randy Wilkins talked about that. The impact that people are overlooking about Juan Soto is like this is such a cultural thing too for the Yankees. So yeah, I mean whatever he wants. Yeah, Aiden, what would you give him? What is the number? It's got to be like, I'm going to say it's 525. I don't know. I just feel like that's what's going to be. It's just in my brain that way. 10 years, something like that.
Yeah, I'm the same as Ryan. Whatever it takes, man. Like it's Juan Soto. I mean, just watching the first series against the Astros, and I was yelling every single time he got a hit. And then when he got that go-ahead single in the third game of the series, I was like, or fourth game. It's like, pay him whatever he wants. I just scream. Every time he gets a hit or a home run now, that's what I scream. Pay him whatever he wants.
I stood up and shouted it, pay the man, when he hit the home run in the stadium yesterday, absolutely. I mean, are we going to do it, though? Are the Yankees that team now?
I feel confident that they will, just because also, could you imagine the blowback? Like, the media,
well, right, but, do we have it? Is Hal going to do this?
Hey, I guess, see, that's the one question that, we can all say we know, but I don't think anybody truly knows the answer to that question. I think that's the scary thing for fans, where it's like, at the end of the day, we can say whatever we want, and we can get, but we don't actually know. Like, we don't know the finite, real answer to that question. I think that's kind of the scariest part. We don't know, and, not knowing, I think, is the scariest thing in the world when it comes to just life in general, huh?
Oh, man. Oh, we can have a conversation about that. Aiden, are we going to do it?
I don't know. Are we going to do it is the question. I mean, I think, in terms of Juan Soto, if he's, if the Yankees are going to do it or not, if you just look at how much they've been advertising him so far, he's all over the Yes Network advertisements. Whenever there's a new ad coming out, he's plastered on the front of it. I feel like he comes before Judge in some of these advertisements. Yeah. But the way he's playing and the way he's killing the Astros, which is something the Yankees have needed for years now, I think Hal Steinbrenner knows that he cannot let this man walk away, because everything about him screams Yankee, and he's one of the best hitters of our generation. You cannot let him go.
So here's the thing. I'm going to tell you right now. On March 3rd, 2025, Juan Soto is going to sign for the Yankees at $475 million over 10 years.
I'll take it.
There it is.
I'll more than take that.
You guys got this clip. It's forever. I'm putting my stake in the ground right now. Planting my flag.
I would do and obviously, I'm at the point where I just don't care what the dollar amount is, but if the Yankees got him for under $500 million, I would almost say I would prefer the high AV shorter term deal, because he would hit the market again at 35. And this is again GM talk, but you do have to factor in aging curves and all that stuff. And he is a slower guy, so he's not going to age as well as faster guys, blah, 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 all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I just want him on the Yankees until the end of his career. Just no doubt about it.
You just have
to
do this. You make the most money in any sports team. Just do it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, too, it's like profitable. Like, you just
Yeah.
have to do it. You
That's
have
why
to.
Ohtani
You just-
got 700.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And they're gonna defer the money and they're pay him after too. Like they don't. It doesn't matter the price tags. The Blue Jays are willing to go a pretty far to get him, and like
You gotta have sympathy for Toronto, man.
I
In so
don't,
many ways,
but
right?
I'll try.
You gotta. That's just rough.
No, it is. That's like heartbreak. The way it happened is like, dude, I don't know if I could
And
recover
then,
from
like,
that.
Bo Bichette's batting under 200 right now. It's just like, oh, God. It's
Yeah,
like,
their outlook is probably the worst in the division. I'd argue because I'd argue I'm not 100% confident that kind of changes year to year too.
I'd say Red Sox maybe.
I was gonna say the Red Sox. I wouldn't put that there because of just that is true, but they are smart. Like I think they're a smart team. Like at least the people they have there, I feel pretty confident in them. Like the pitching side of things have gone,
Yeah,
no,
Andrew Bailey's doing a great job with that. Absolutely.
right. But you're right. Offense is they've got some questions there. Hey, at least I'm glad they traded Mookie Betts though. That's good for me. That's good for the pod, huh? What a decision. What a decision. Things that hopefully, I don't ever have to be on that side of the coin with like trading a star, a franchise altering, like not even just like a good player, not or like a multi-time all-star, like Hall of Fame, lock, one of the best, the second best player of this generation behind Mike Trout. There's a chance that with Trout's injuries and the way Betts has been aging in his first few years as a 30-year-old, there's a chance I'm not saying he's going to surpass him, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we did cover a lot of bases here. We basically went around the division almost. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for jumping on this podcast. This was a great episode. If I want you to be able to plug everything you want to plug in now, so yeah, where can we find you?
Yeah, just come and check out pitcherlist.com. I stream every morning, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time every weekday morning. Just come on and hang out, and let's talk some pitching. All the stats I mentioned are on our player pages. I made them because I needed to do more analysis. So everything I'm talking about, from like flat four-seamers to vert, all that stuff, it's inside of our player pages underneath the Stuff tab. Go check it out. There really is no better way to look up your favorite players. So I'll see you guys there.
Yeah, 100% agree there. And thank you again so much for tuning in. Everybody who's watching, thank you guys for sticking through. Again, links will all be in the description for his content, for Pitcher List, for the streams as well. You guys can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page for daily podcast episodes and short form content. We'll see you guys in the next one. Let's go Yankees. Peace out.
Perfect.